Hello, everyone. This is the Parks Academy, where we discuss and celebrate all things theme parks related. We focus mainly on Disney parks in both Anaheim and Orlando. And today, of course, it is just me again because Paige and I just had our beautiful baby boy about a month ago, and we're just loving every minute of it. But of course, she's taken some much needed rest, and I'm so glad she gets to do that. Fear not, however, we have a great guest on the show today, Jacob McAlister. He is an incredible artist. He works for the Disney Company, and we are so glad to have him on the show. So, welcome.
Glad to be here, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, you and I have talked about this a little bit off air, but essentially, what's been going on with our show is we had a baby about a month ago. Paige and I did. And so I've just been, kind of keeping the lights on with our show, chatting with people and finding interesting people who are Disney enthusiasts to one degree or another, and just bringing them on and chatting with them. And I've been following your work for a while now. I didn't really get, that deep into like what you did and some of your history and stuff until we started talking. But your artwork is so captivating and fun and whimsical and cool that it was one of those things where I just felt like if I didn't talk to you a little bit about what you're doing, I would regret it. And then when we were trying to put something together, you told me you had to wait till after New York Comic Con, and I was like, that seals the deal. This guy seems like he's a lot of fun and really cool. So I'm excited.
I'm glad to be here, man. Yeah.
Uh, let's just start off by how was New York Comic Con? Some of my friends went. It seemed really cool. And what did you do over there?
It was awesome, man. Yeah, I think this is my third year. I set up a booth and I share with a buddy of mine. He's got a 10 by 10 right next to me, and I've got a 10 by 10 in line. Um, he does also I'm just gonna plug him anyway.
Go for it. Yeah, of
He
course.
he does my buddy Ian does stained glass windows, and he also makes stained glass clings, um geek related stuff, and t-shirts and stuff. Beautiful, beautiful work. And I've been doing cons with him, geez, for like 10 years. I've known him for about 10 years. We started out in MegaCon a long time ago. Um, and we've been fast friends ever since. Uh, and so I started doing New York Comic Con with him 3 years ago. And I set up there and I sell canvases and postcards and all that kind of fun stuff, mostly Disney related stuff, just because
Mhm.
that's what I love. But there's, I mean, other pop culture related items, Indiana Jones and
Yeah.
uh, you know, my mind's blanking right now, but lots of other stuff too. Yeah, I got lots of junk in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Indiana Jones and stuff, I see a Star Wars things, like all that kind of falls under the umbrella of Disney to some degree or another.
I guess it does. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, there's a
Except
little Harry Potter in there too.
what I was gonna say, you don't have to scroll too far down to see like Shrek and Fiona in their onion carriage. So, no, it's cool. But I mean, I love the the pop culture stuff. And one thing that I was really taken by when I was looking at your website is how your bio is basically like the back of I would just say action figure, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja action figure packaging. It's almost like your resume, and I've never seen a resume like that before, but it is extraordinarily impressive. It's like super cool.
Thanks, man. It's funny. So I worked for Loungefly for 2 years after COVID, and Funko's stocks, Funko's the parent company of Loungefly, their
Right.
stocks took a dive, and it was 10% cuts all around. Being a subsidiary of Funko, Loungefly had to let go of a bunch of people, and I was one of those people to be let go. So I jumped on getting a new resume made, and I wanted to do something unique and quirky, and so I decided to model mine after the classic, like late '80s Ninja Turtles blister packs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was fun. And the funny thing is, like, I spent like a week working on this, and I made full blister packs with plastic and a little figure on the inside and everything, ready to go for like anyone who wanted to see it, and like never even got the chance to like show it around. So it's just like sits on my shelf. Even the job I have now with Disney, like I didn't
Uh-huh.
need to show them a physical resume, so there was no use for it. But it was a fun project. So
But did they see the one that's on your site, or
no,
they
they've
didn't? Oh
literally,
man.
the only people that have ever seen it are I, I did a job fair somewhere in that unemployment era,
Yeah.
and Job fairs, by the way, are not meant for creatives. Um, they're meant
Yeah.
for other industries.
Yeah.
And so it was very awkward passing out these blister packs. But SeaWorld was impressed and gave me a call the next day and
Hey,
said, "Hey, we don't have any jobs, but we really like your resume." I'm like, "Thanks
that
for nothing."
is that's
But
like one of the worst feelings in the world. I just recently was I used to have a company, a marketing agency that I ran, and I was just getting so burnt out with it. That's not the story, but the story is that I kept, you know, I kept applying for places. I do have a job now, which is great, but I kept applying for places and I got a lot of, oh my gosh, your resume is so impressive. Like, we're really, that's great, but we don't have anything for you right now. And I'm like, all right, well, thanks for letting me know, I guess. But yeah, no, job hunting is brutal.
yeah,
But now you're with Disney. Tell me about that. You're a concept artist, correct?
yeah. So I work for DLE, Disney Live Entertainment. We're a subset of Imagineering. We're technically Imagineering Live is what we're considered.
Okay.
Um, so I can cross Imagineering off that bucket list from childhood. Um, and we do all the live shows and events. So when a new show is about to be produced at the parks, they come to us for concept art for it, and then set designs and all the way up to like installation. And that's just for shows. And then we also do, when a new character comes out for a meet and greet, we'll design the the setting that those characters will be in, as well as all the signage and all the graphics for that. We do resort works. They're like, for instance, they're redoing the cabins at Fort Wilderness right now. That was announced. So our department is helping out with the artwork for that. Um, if there is a meet and greet for a character at let's say Mickey's Not So Scary, it's up to us. Actually, just about all the art for Not So Scary is done by DLE, as well as like the new Jollywood Nights that's coming out
Okay.
this year. So yeah,
Yeah.
we have our hands in so much stuff. It's nonstop over there.
Is that a pretty big team, would you say?
Um, Art wise, no, it's not that
Hmm.
huge. I would say art wise, there's only, I want to say like 12 of us, 12 illustrators or so around there. I
Okay. I
mean,
mean,
between
so enough to
art
get the job done,
directors.
but not enough to feel like you always have your bases covered all the time, right?
Yeah, there's always those last minute projects. Like, yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, I told you when when you contacted me just a little bit ago, I was like, I just got some notes. I gotta finish a few things up before I hop on this. So like, yeah, there's always some fire to put out.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. I feel like the um I've talked to a lot of people who are involved with Disney in one way or another, whether they're just, I shouldn't say just, but whether they're, independent artists who go to Festival of the Arts or they're, cast members, or for instance, we interviewed Brett Iwan, of course, the voice of Mickey Mouse a handful of months ago. I always feel like there's this sense of like responsibility and urgency to get it right when you're representing the Disney company, because you're not,
Mhm.
you're not showing up the Jacob McAlister work or your art, you're basically creating more Disney lore and portfolio work that's just going to be in their vaults, forever, which is I can't imagine. I mean, that's such a huge responsibility, and a pretty big, not in a bad way, but a pretty big burden to carry on your shoulders. That you're, and I'm not going to put any pressure on you, but I'd
No,
imagine that's a lot,
no.
to think about, right?
It's funny. I don't think about that. I don't. It doesn't. I'm very excited for the work I do. Like
Okay.
incredibly. I every day I go in and I love what I'm doing and I love the new projects that get handed to me and seeing what's coming down the pipeline. Um, but no, it's fulfilling this dream that I've had ever since I was little,
Hmm.
of working for Disney. When I was little, I wanted to work in animation. I thought I wanted to work in animation. Um, and I had a buddy who also works for Disney. And at one point in high school, we used to sit down and design rides.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
and it was just like the coolest thing in the world. And I'm not designing rides, but to be behind the scenes and developing things for Disney is just, yeah, it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. Speaking of Brett Irwin,
Hmm.
I just found out last week or like 2 weeks ago that we went to school together,
Oh, no
and
kidding.
he was roommates with one of my close friends for 2 years.
That's so
And I
funny.
didn't even know. I mean, maybe I've met him. I don't know, but I just thought that was really interesting that we were there at
Yeah.
the same time and in the same circles. Had no idea.
Yeah, that's such a weird small world we live in, right? No, God, no pun intended saying small world, but it really is like a it's just funny how many like little coincidences show up. So you had mentioned like you were talking briefly about, your childhood and always kind of wanting to be an animator. Um, I'm assuming probably you meant for film specifically.
Mhm.
But what were some of your, I don't know, just have you been doing this professionally or as a career for a long time, or did it take you a little bit of time to actually get into it?
No, it took me a long time.
Yeah.
I went to school at Ringling over in Sarasota for 2 years, and then halfway through, kind of ran out of money. Um, had got started on a family, got married. We had a kid pretty quick, and then it was just kind of a struggle for a long time. We, my wife is a teacher, and she has always been a teacher, so there was always a steady income there. But for me, I had to spend years building a portfolio and teaching myself everything that I didn't learn at Ringling. I became friends with a gentleman who worked at part of a Disney company, part of Disney called DDG or Disney Design Group.
Hmm.
I used to go over to his house once a week, and he would teach me Illustrator. Because at the time I thought, like, okay, I've got a little bit of illustration down because that was my major before, but now I got to learn
Right.
some graphic design because graphic design is like there's way more jobs than that. So I thought I'd start
Sure.
nailing that down. Um, and That's where I got my first job freelancing with Disney. I did some pin designs back in the day.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
and then I slowly worked my way to different jobs, print shops, and then some product design for a company for a while. And then at one point in 2009, I flipped switches and going way back, so I'm just like jabbering now.
No, please.
Going way back to high school, I myself a choice. It's either going to be theater or it was going to be art, because the two
Hmm.
things that I loved in this world. Um, and I had picked art. I went to college for art. In 2009, I kind of switched gears and I did a community theater show. I did Sweet Charity, and something I hadn't done community theater for like 9 years. It had been like 9 years since I had done any theater at all. And while I was there, a friend said, "Hey, Disney's auditioning for this show called Finding Nemo the musical," which at the time had only been out for like a year. And he's like, "You
The
should go
one
for it." I'm like,
in
"Oh,
Animal
yeah,
Kingdom, right?
yeah, yeah."
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like, "Okay, cool, yeah, I'll go for it." So I went for it. And After like a few callbacks and 6 months later, I got the job and I ended up doing Crush and Marlin for like 12 years until the pandemic shut
Nice.
us down.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
Only as a sub, but there were times where I was in there like 3 or 4 days out of the week. It was hit or miss. You never knew. It's like when they need someone, I would fill in.
Right. Right.
But I absolutely love that job, and it filled that part of my life that had been missing.
Hmm.
Um, so I so yeah, so did that, and then at one point needed more steady work, so I started teaching over at Full Sail,
Hmm.
and then switched over to working at art and design over in Universal. Sorry, I should say I had also been acting for Universal for a while too. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I
Okay.
submitted my portfolio, and then I started doing work for Halloween Horror Nights. And then they asked me if I could do some work for Epic Uni. Well, actually, not yet. Before that, I started doing work for Nintendo World in Japan. I started doing stuff for what's it called? Super Nintendo World.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then they asked me to join the team for Epic Universe and started at Blue Sky and
Wow.
was concepting that for like 4 years before the pandemic. And I was still doing Nemo at the time. Uh, and then pandemic shut everything down. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it
then
was
everyone was
super exciting.
scrambling to figure out what to do.
Yeah, the scrambling. Me and some friends actually got together and we created a game that we got funded on Kickstarter and got developed, and that was fun. And then that wasn't making any money, so ended up getting the job
Yeah.
with Loungefly, and you know the
Okay.
rest.
That's cool. What game was it?
It's called Oh the Horror. It's a
Okay.
comedy based horror card game, turn based game, kind of like akin to Cards Against Humanity,
Cool.
but all the cards are fully illustrated. I spent like
Yeah.
6 months illustrating 200 cards for that thing.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't quite see exactly what you were looking for
Yeah,
with the
I
success,
was proud
but
of it.
you know,
It
it
was
gets
fun.
you're at this place now in your life. Was Disney always kind of like the end goal? Do you think?
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say I mean like it's something I hadn't really thought about, but yeah,
yeah.
it was always my inspiration and my first love, like ever since I was a kid. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's awesome. I mean, it does look like you've been able to do just like so many cool things for them, even as just your own personal work. So that's really awesome. Speaking of games, I was looking obviously through your websites, and it looks like you've done a couple of different games. You've got I Found It, a hidden picture game, and then this
Hmm.
really cool looking Jungle Cruise game. Tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about those.
So I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago now. Ravensburger reached out to me and asked if I could do excuse me, asked if I could do the board and all the cards for their upcoming release of Disney's Jungle Cruise, the board game.
Hmm.
And I, of course, agreed and said yes, I would love to.
Of
Because it
course,
gives me
yeah.
a reason. That was the first like big licensed Disney thing that I had ever done.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was really fun. It was super fun, and it was totally flattering to be asked out of the blue to just do something like that.
That it was truly just out of blue. I just reached out to you just like that, and that's how it all came together. That's crazy. I mean, that's a great.
Yeah.
That's really
And
cool.
I've had a super great relationship uh with Ravensburger ever since then, and I've done so many things, and
Yeah.
it's been so much fun. It's been the best freelance gig that I've had in my life, and yeah, it's continued for years now.
That's amazing. That's super cool. And then I've actually never heard of the other one before, the I Found It game. I'm sure maybe I've seen it in stores and such, but did you do the board for that as well?
So I found it gets updated every few years.
Okay.
I think from what I'm aware, this is the second or third edition. I did the line art and level design, I guess you could call it, for
Uh-huh.
the Lilo and Stitch section as well as the Sleeping Beauty section.
Got
So they
it.
give
Okay.
me they give me a section. They're like, we need this to be, Kauai where Lilo lives. We need all the staple places that, everyone recognizes from the film. And then we need all these items. And they give me a list of items to hide in
Hmm.
there. And I have to draw all the little items in there. I didn't paint this one.
Interesting. Yeah.
My friend Diana Castillo actually painted it. She did a fantastic job. I just did all the design and line work for those two levels.
They're really cool. I mean, so essentially you're just doing like a Disney Where's Waldo's in a
Yeah,
way, huh?
pretty
That's
much.
cool. No,
Pretty
those are
much. Oh, it's
sweet.
super fun. It was
Yeah, that
super
looks
fun.
like a lot of fun. I think it's a little bit I think it might be a little bit behind, the kind of games that I would have played. Or probably came out a little later than when I would have played them, but it looks awesome. Um,
It's your kids will be old enough soon. You guys will have. I recommend picking up that one.
so we have these, gosh, I'm forgetting what they're called, but we have these like Disney board books. I need to, I'm gonna completely blank on what the name is, but they have a couple, there's like a couple of them. And basically, oh, they're called the Buddy Block books. Have you heard of those?
No.
Okay, so they're these big, thick books, and there are board books. They're called Buddy Blocks. And my daughter, who she genuinely, I mean, she was, I guess, like maybe one and a half, maybe like one and a quarter.
Okay.
And this book, it's called Disney Block. This one specifically, and there's a hidden Mickey on every single page, and they're not like the
Huh.
most easy to find. And she was able to like find all of every single one of them. So I think that she might do really well with this other set of books, the I Found It books,
Yeah.
or the board game, excuse me, because she's very good at finding obscure things. And I was really shocked that I mean, like the hidden Mickeys are not super obvious either. So they're like,
Yeah.
hidden in the picture. Like they're like sometimes the same color or they're really dark in the background. And she was just able to find them all on her own. So maybe
Uh,
she would be really good at
These
that.
are super cute. I love the style on these.
Yeah, they have all kinds. I mean, they have like Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, but they also have just like farm animals and trucks and whatever.
Oh
So yeah,
yeah, and there's
they're a
that.
lot of
Yeah.
fun.
I'm
They are a
looking at
lot of
them right
fun.
now. Yeah, they're really
Yeah, they're
cool.
cool and they're not expensive for what I mean for what you get like $12 for a big book's not bad at all.
Yeah, no, that's rad.
Yeah. For sure. So I guess I'll put those in the show notes along with everything else you've talked about regarding some of these games and things like that. Um, we had talked about. Uh, I kind of was thinking. I mean, obviously we're kind of a Disney parks podcast mostly, and while we
Mm.
do talk about a lot of history of things and rides, ride and land history and just fun facts and things like that. One of the things we like to do when we have guests on is just kind of get their whole take on the parks. Um, because obviously everyone has their own unique experience to them and how you grew up, which parks you grew up next to, or within somewhat of a proximity to. I would love to hear a little bit about like what was your home park and what it was like for you, kind of like some of your first experiences going to parks and kind of how that kind of propelled you into the career that you are currently in.
Oh man. Okay, let's see. So my dad was military. So we've lived all over the country, including Florida and California. So the first parks I remember going to were actually California. Well, it was maybe way before uh, California Adventure, but I
Sure.
remember going to Disneyland as a kid.
Hmm.
I remember specifically we lived in California between I think it was I'm gonna date myself so bad
No
here.
worries. No
Between
worries.
we'll just say late 80s.
Okay,
We'll
that's
just say
fair.
late 80s. Um, and I remember riding Splash Mountain and
Hmm.
then coming to Florida and making friends and being so proud that I had ridden on Splash Mountain and no one in Florida had ridden it yet because it wasn't built here until what like
Ooh,
91 or 92 or whatever.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like my claim to fame. I adore California. I adore Newland. I mean I live in Florida obviously, so
Hmm.
this is my home base and I love it here. But there's something so absolutely magical. And it was so that when I talking about the late 80s, that was the last time I had been to Disneyland until 2018. So it had been
Wow.
30
So I
years.
mean, it changed quite a
Um,
bit then, obviously, huh?
Oh yeah. I went back for a convention that I was attending called Designer Con.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I was there right around the corner in Anaheim for the weekend, and I was still a cast member at the time, so I just used my entrance pass and got in the parks for free, and
Cool.
I lost my mind. I was
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that I was like tearing up, but I was bawling. Um,
That's fine.
it
That's
was
totally
it
fine.
was it was there's so much history and it's small
Hmm.
but it's so magical there like
Yeah.
and especially when you've been like I even though my dad's military we've lived in Florida most of my life so I spent most of my time at Disney World so going back there after 30 years was just the most amazing day of my life. I absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was my home park. So I currently live, my wife and I currently live in Baltimore, Maryland. We've lived here for a while. It's where she's from. So Paige, she and our listeners have heard me say this probably a million times. But she grew up on the East Coast. So her home park, of course, was Disney World. I grew up on the West Coast in the San Francisco Bay Area. So my home park was the Disneyland, of course. But yeah, I mean, it is truly a really special park, and it's like it's I wish I can go back like more often than I do. I used to go all the time growing up in high school. I went a ton. In college I went a ton. um but I haven't been back. I guess the last time I went back was like 2020, and we went in January just to go see Galaxy's Edge open up, and it was like right before
Mhm.
it was like 3 months before the pandemic, so we were able to really
Yeah.
kind of get a feel for it then. I haven't been back since, regrettably, but it's on our list of things to do. But my desire to go back to Disneyland is outweighed by my desire to not travel across the country more than I have to with two kids.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah. Oh man, I've done
yeah.
it. I did Hawaii from Florida with my
Hmm.
son on my lap when he was one. No, was he 18 months old? Like he was young, and
Yeah.
he was on my lap the whole time, and that was the longest flight of my life.
It's funny because Paige and I, we have talked about our 10-year anniversaries in 2 years, right? So
Hmm.
we are discussing like what we're gonna do for that. Our last handful of anniversaries have been kind of mild because of our kids, so we haven't really been able to like get away and whatever. And so for a while we were like, let's go to Alani, our 10-year anniversary, let's do it. And we're not going to Alani without kids. Like we want to take them with us. It seems like something we really want to do. And even though it is our big anniversary, we'd still like our kids to be there to experience it. And we took both of our children to go to Hershey Park. We go there quite a bit because have you been to Hershey Park before?
I haven't. I
Oh
haven't.
my gosh, it's a lot of fun. And we live about an hour away from it, right? So
Mhm.
we took them there last weekend to take our daughter trick or treating at like the kids area and just kind of hang out over there. I mean, it's a really good theme park. It's like Disney caliber in a lot of ways, actually. It's
Yeah.
great, but as we were like spending 45 minutes getting out of the car and changing diapers and getting strollers set up and getting her in her costume, we were like, I looked at her on our way in and I'm like, wouldn't it be just terrible to be in Disney right now with these two? She's like, yeah, I don't think I'd want to do that at this very moment.
Yeah.
So
No.
because our kids would be like 4 and 2, we were like, we don't want to do Alani with them, pay like what, $10,000 plus airfare plus to get there. So we're like, maybe
Yeah.
we'll just do like if we want to do something Disney, maybe we'll just do like a cruise or something like that, for like three,
Yeah.
$4,000 instead and just fly down to Florida and save like half the cost. So
Yeah. You know what? Leave your car at my house, and I'll drive you down there, and you'll save $100 on parking.
oh, perfect. Well, typically what we do is we would I appreciate that. Typically what we do is just, fly into Orlando and then take the express down, even though it costs money now. So
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was ridiculous. I can't believe they cut off those services.
yeah, it's kind of wild how much things started costing after,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to talk about the politics of Disney CEO decision making, but it doesn't seem like it's getting any better lately either. So,
Not so much.
yeah. Well, that's cool. So is there so the first time you said you went to Disneyland was like late 80s. That was your first experience. And then when was your first time in Disney World? Do you recall it all?
Um, let's see. I was born in Florida, and then we moved to, let's see, Florida, Virginia, Florida, Virginia, Alabama, California, Florida, Virginia, Florida,
Oh wow. Okay.
California, California, Florida, California, Florida. Okay.
Wow.
So that would have been Disneyland would have been my first experience, and then we moved down to Florida. But like I said, I've spent most of my life in Florida,
Mhm.
so I would have had that small chunk of years in California. Although Disneyland was my first experience, um, Florida has taken up the bulk of
Okay.
my Disney, like the huge bulk of my Disney experience. So
Got it. Cool. Yeah, you've actually lived in like three of the places I've lived, Virginia, or no, two of the places, Virginia and California. I've lived in both those
yeah,
places. Never Florida though.
yeah. No, you're good.
Um,
Do you know what? You're good. It's Florida.
yeah, I can see there's things about it that I think would be charming. And then there's other things about it that I don't think I would prefer so much.
No.
Mostly like I don't think I would really enjoy the weather all the time.
Mm-mm. It's
I
so
think that
humid.
would kind of get to me a lot. And I do like, I used to, so growing up in California, yeah, I didn't grow up in like sunny coastal California, right? Like a lot of people would think of. In fact, when I first moved to the East Coast and someone found out that I lived in California, they said, "Do you surf?" And I was like, "No, I do
No,
not
it's
surf.
too
I've never
cold.
surfed and I'd be really bad at it." Um, yeah, no, it is too cold. The beaches in the San Francisco area are shockingly cold, and I think a lot of people
Yeah.
don't really realize that, or the wind is so aggressive that you have to like bundle up and hope you don't get blown off a cliff. Um,
Or it could be like 86 in the day, and then by the time night rolls around, it's like in the 50s.
yeah, that's how it was growing up at my house. That's how it was, where it would dip down to like the 30s sometimes at night, and it would just be like
Hmm.
so pleasant and beautiful, and then you'd be up in like the 70s by 11 o'clock
Yeah.
in the early afternoon. So I don't even know where I was going with that. I guess all to say is I just kind of I don't think that I would really do well in the Florida environment. But having a home out there would be kind of cool, like a little vacation home within proximity to the Orlando area would be that'd be all right.
Get get that DVC.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Except I'm still not convinced it's not a total timeshare, and I've always promised myself I don't want to be involved in a timeshare.
No,
So,
it's a total timeshare, and it's honestly insanely expensive for when you can just plan a vacation and save so much
yeah,
money.
that's kind of been my rationale for it. We have some good friends who I don't want to oust anybody here, but we do have some good friends who are DVC members, and I've really grilled them on it, asked them a million questions, and I'm like, so it's a timeshare? They're like, what kind of? But and I'm like, it sounds like a timeshare.
Sounds like a timeshare.
There's like entire sitcoms based around avoiding getting roped into the homes.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I mean, but at least it comes with the benefits of, park passes and like
exactly. Right.
stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and you can utilize your points over the board. Like I mean, it's got some cool features.
Um, so how was How has it been? I mean, do you live within pretty good proximity of the parks because you're in Florida, or is that sort of a miscalculation on my end?
Yeah, no, I live an hour away because I work actually the offices that I work at are right next to Animal Kingdom.
Oh, no kidding.
So
Okay.
yeah, I live on the coast and I drive in every day. It's about an hour drive in. And then
Oh, okay. Cool.
if I hit traffic on the way back, it's about an hour and a half on the way back. So try to avoid that.
Yeah, I bet. What's your medium for your art that you do? I know you
It's all
mentioned
digital.
Illustrator. Right, but
Yeah.
I guess I
Oh,
should say like
Photoshop.
is it okay, it's Photoshop, Illustrator. Do you do like any like Procreate iPad work or is it all just sort of
No, there's a lot of guys in the office. A lot of the younger crowd is rocking on the Procreate. I actually when I was working on the Jungle Cruise game a few years ago, I picked up an iPad Pro and I downloaded Procreate and I'm like, I'm gonna do this.
yeah.
I'm gonna learn this and I'm gonna be able to draw anywhere I go. And I'm gonna have this great little tool that's just gonna be it's gonna be I
Yeah.
just I could not I cannot work without my quick keys on my keypad. For those of you who don't know what quick keys are, when
Mhm.
you're working in Photoshop, you have buttons on your keyboard that allow you to access your tools much
Uh-huh.
quicker.
Yep.
And I can't work without them. It
I'm
drives me nuts.
I'm the exact same way. So my profession is in marketing. I work for it's weird to say since I had my own company for 10 years and I literally got hired by a new company like 2 weeks ago. So I'm still kind of in this spaz. Like I sold my company to them and I'm in like this whole weird, crazy transition. Um, but I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm an artist. I mean, not in the way that you are with like, drawing and digital art and stuff, but I'm very proficient in like Photoshop and Illustrator for like graphic design for web stuff mainly. And I was training some people on how to do a specific job that was tasked to me, and I kept forgetting that I was using quick keys. And
Yeah,
so I would do things and they'd be like, wait, how did you do this? Or, like this is all boring and no one wants to hear this, but like even something as simple as just cropping something and holding down shift to like maintain the square shape.
yeah,
People like they'd be like, I don't know what you just did. So I'd have to like stop and explain everything. And and
yeah,
but I hear you. It's yeah. Do you
yeah,
use any kind of like um any kind of pen or anything like that, like on a surface, or is it all just
yeah.
computer stuff?
I have a 27-inch Wacom Cintiq. I think it's
Okay.
27. Yeah, it looks about 27. Um, Not the touch because I hate the touch one. Um,
Yeah,
Gets in the way. Um, yeah, I have a 27-inch Cintiq mounted on my desk that I'm like looking at right now.
cool.
That I use. Surprisingly, at work, I use a much smaller one because I can't get the big ones to sync to my laptop for some reason. I use like an 18-inch at work or 16-inch or something. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I draw directly onto my monitor. You know what that is,
Yes,
obviously.
I do.
But yeah, I draw directly onto a monitor, so it's texture-wise doesn't feel like drawing on paper, but it definitely gives you the tactile nature of actually painting and drawing.
Right. Well, and after a while, you just get used to it. Like, I'm sure that you would be a complete master at Procreate if you. By the way, Procreate is a pay out of the gate app on iPads. It's really great. I have it and I've tried it, but I suck at it. But it's just like anything else, right? Like if you just practiced on it, you'd be really good at it. And there's a million YouTube, tutorials and all kinds of things that you can learn how to do, all the great work on it. But yeah, I don't have the patience or the drive or quite frankly the end goal to want to get
Yeah.
into it because I would just be doing it for myself and I have other things to do that are more prominently important. So
Well, a few things I do love about it that I have noticed. Line control is much different when you're drawing your lines
mhm,
on Procreate than it is in Photoshop. There is a lot of great options that I wish that Photoshop would utilize, like drawing a circle. You can draw
mhm,
a circle in Procreate and then hold your pen down when you're done drawing that circle, and it will
yeah,
shape it perfectly into a circle if you've
exactly.
missed. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
drawing straight lines, you can draw straight lines
Just it'll just
like you had
snap
a
into
ruler on.
itself. Yeah.
It'll just snap into itself, and I
Yeah.
really wish Photoshop would utilize that.
Yeah, no, that is a really cool feature on it. Again, I know enough just to like kind of get by and look like to someone who's never seen technology that I know what I'm doing. But certainly not enough to actually like create cool art. Uh, Okay, so I want to shift gears slightly here and
Yeah.
ask you a little bit about. So we're talking about the parks. Do you have a favorite? It doesn't matter where. I don't care if it's Disneyland or Disney World or out of the country or whatever. Is there a specific park like gate that you prefer over others, or is there's one that's just like your absolute favorite?
I mean, I would have to say my favorite would be Disneyland.
Okay.
Um, but I've only been to Disneyland just oh my God. I remember when Euro Disney opened
Hmm.
in the early 90s. I remember the day it opened. I remember getting off the bus and thinking about it because I had been looking forward to it for so long.
Yeah.
It has always been a dream of mine. Like that Tony Baxter Paradise over there
Yeah.
and that Ivan Earl castle with the cliffs and the trees. Like, oh God, I dream of that place
Hmm.
in Phantom Manor. Like, I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
place so bad. And now Tokyo Disney Sea is this Disney jewel that is just absolutely gorgeous. And with the new lands opening up over there,
Oh yeah.
with the even like the Neverland section, I'm so excited. So yeah,
Hmm.
those are two of my big goals I want to get over to, um, Disneyland Paris and Tokyo Disney Sea.
Yeah. That's cool. I've never been to any out of the country, and that's I think Tokyo Disney Sea is the number one. Paris is up there, even though I've heard it's a little underwhelming and small. There's certain things about it that I've heard are great. But yeah, no, I think that any huge Disney fan, the consensus is yes, I want to see all of them, but Disney Sea is kind of like almost like the
Yeah,
crown jewel of them all. Um, when was sorry if I've already asked this, but or
yeah.
if you told me, but when was the last time you were at Disneyland? Has it been a while?
Disneyland was the 2018 when I was up there for the
Okay, got
convention.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I see
first and
through
only time in
your
30 years.
okay, so I see through your work that you are, if not a super fan, at least adjacent a fan to Star Wars from some of the stuff that you have on here.
Oh
Have you
yeah,
been to? Oh, sorry, no, obviously you haven't been. But one thing that I'll say is I'm a huge Galaxy's Edge fan, and there is nothing more beautiful than the marriage of Disneyland Park and Galaxy's Edge together. It feels like it should be very weird, that it's there because it's so old and nostalgic, and Disneyland has like a this smell that no other park has. I mean, everything about it is just this own thing.
yeah,
And then to have a brand new like Star Wars space, within the top corner, it feels like it should be wrong, but it flows so seamlessly. And I've only been there once in Disneyland, but it has so much better of a feel to me anyway than what you would experience in Hollywood studios. So next time you go, I mean, obviously I know you're going to go to Disneyland next time you go, but that's something that's just, I mean, it's unbelievable seeing that for the first time out there. It's the same. There's nothing different about it except the fact that you just are still in Disneyland, and it's just this great, really, really powerful, great feeling.
yeah, yeah. No, I can't even imagine that because it feels so awkwardly placed in Hollywood studios. No, I mean once you're in it, and it's
Right.
amazing. But that odd cave-like entrance cut through that underpass or whatever it is in the New York section.
Yeah, because
It's interesting.
there's like two ways. Either you go through like right by the Muppets, and then you kind of have to go
Yeah,
from like indoor to like New York and the Muppets, and then you're in Galaxy's Edge, which doesn't make any sense. And then you like, um, or you have to go through like Toy Story Land, which
Toy Story
I
Land,
guess I
which
mean they blend it okay, but it's still kind of a strange feeling, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My son, who's in the Marines, just came home um, before he left for Japan about a month ago, and we went to Galaxy's Edge as a family for the first time. My wife and I had gone
Mhm.
for the cast member preview back in, oh, was it like 2019 or 2018 or something like
2019
that?
is when it opened. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went to the cast member preview, and we did everything we could. Rise of the Resistance wasn't open yet, and then I maintained my cast member status, even though the stage Nemo stage had been closed
Hmm.
for like a year or so. And I Rise of the Resistance had opened, but I told them I would wait. And I didn't ride Rise of the Resistance until last month for the very first time.
It's okay.
Yeah, I waited for the family. We all went together and lost our minds. Like I knew what to expect because
Yeah.
I'm a geek. I'm a geek for this stuff, and I've watched every video and every breakdown and like,
Mhm.
but oh man,
Yeah, at
I
that
don't care how many
point,
videos you watch.
at that point, it's one of those things where, especially since you hadn't been in so long that, or since you had never, gone so long without going on it from the time it opened. Um, yeah, I can't imagine how you wouldn't have been spoiled along the way, but it is pretty
Oh yeah,
phenomenal the first time. I've
yeah,
been on it 4 times, not to brag. And the first time, there's nothing like the first time. It really is one of those things where I almost would be okay not going on it again, or wishing that I could just like have every experience be like I had never seen it before, because there's so many
Yeah,
surprises, and then like once those surprises reveal themselves, they definitely lose some of their luster. They're still
yeah, I can
amazing,
imagine.
but just like, oh my gosh, the first time you go on it and you see like, the same doors you walked through in that shuttle, open up to all those stormtroopers, and you're like, this is like way larger than anything I could have ever imagined.
Yeah,
The escape out of the prison, just the cannons firing, like every little detail and thing that's just so cool. You just don't, I mean, yeah, that's cool that you got to experience for the first time with your whole family, because that's
yeah,
it's
it was
something
great.
to be on there with a lot of people. That's
And
cool.
I'm not a fan of trackless rides, um, for a number of reasons, but I think that the trackless ride system works incredibly well for Rise of the Resistance, given that you're in a space station and
Yeah.
it's so open and they're hallways and it makes sense
Yeah.
to be riding around in a vehicle. So like, I really enjoyed that.
Um, I know that the trackless ride system didn't really it didn't really start out here as much, or in the United States. Besides Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, I'm trying to think what other some of the other ones in Disney that are
So
trackless.
let's the what's the one over at it's not it's Shanghai's, is it Shanghai's or is it
Oh, you're thinking of
Hong
the
Kong's?
Winnie the Pooh one,
Well, there's a Winnie the Pooh one and there's also
the Beauty and the Beast one, I think.
The Haunted Mansion version of
Okay,
the Haunted Mansion version
I
over in
think it's in,
China.
yeah, and then
But it's like the monkey, it's like the little monkey.
yeah, I think
Um
that might be in Hong Kong or Shanghai. I think it might be in Shanghai.
it's
Um,
yeah, one of the
but
two. But you
and then
know,
I think the
but
Beauty and the
again,
Beast one is also
and the Beauty and the
trackless.
Beast
Oh,
one
and you know what? Mickey and Minnie's Runaway is
and
a
Mickey and
trackless
Minnie.
ride. Yeah.
So my issue with trackless rides is there's so much open space
Mm,
that's not being utilized because
mm,
you have this huge vehicle that's going through the ride, and there's always this giant gap between you and the elements of the ride, and it you lose that personability.
yeah.
You lose that closeness. Like when, like, say you're on Haunted Mansion,
Mm,
there's doom buggies in front of you and behind you, and you feel like you're on this march, you're in this line,
yeah.
sitting in these chairs, and you're right in it. You're right next to the events that are happening. And whenever I'm on a trackless ride, I feel so pushed away. Like Mickey and Minnie's, for instance, like it's just like I feel like I'm looking at wall. I mean, yes, it's mostly projection, so yes, you are mostly looking at walls, but I
Sure.
just feel so distanced from what's going on in the ride, and it's always bothered me.
Yeah. That I can understand that. That actually that point is definitely not lost on me. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like how Remy's Ratatouille Adventure feels. I've only been on the ride once, and I was so excited to go on it that it feels like a blur, kind of.
Yeah.
um, but I can definitely understand that, especially thinking of Mickey and Minnie's for sure. That does make total sense.
I will say why Remy's worked better than most any other trackless ride that I can think of. We also rode Remy's for the first time as a family last month,
Yeah.
um, and I loved it. And it's because of the lighting. It's
Hmm.
because they keep the lights low and you can't see the floor, so
Yeah.
you don't feel that distance that you feel in Mickey's Runaway Railway because
Yeah.
everything is so lit up and you can see that giant gap. And I think that's a big thing. Do you remember when Little Mermaid, um, Journey, whatever it's called,
Journey into Water
opened?
or whatever.
Yeah, opened over in Fantasyland, and and the lighting was insanely bright, and the in the under the sea section of the ride, you could see straight across from, like, because you go in and then it curves around to the right,
Hmm.
and then you go out of that room. But you could see all the way to the end of the room
Yeah.
because it was lit so incredibly bright, and there's no. I guess I'm just trying to say that lighting makes a huge
I
difference in
understand
a
what no,
ride,
I understand exactly what you're saying. Right. Yeah.
and
It's why, like, for instance, if you have to be in like an intro exit on like Indiana Jones or Space Mountain, you're completely taken out of it once the lights come on. It's a completely
yeah,
different environment and atmosphere. I do not know. I kind of know what you mean, sort of about Little Mermaid, but I've only ridden that ride once or twice in Magic Kingdom,
Hmm.
whereas opposed to like in DCA, I rode it a lot more because that's where I went. But I hear you, and I think to your point too, like on Remy's, for instance, you're a different kind of the purpose is different because you're supposed to be like a little mouse scurrying through a kitchen. So they do all this force perspective and like bigger. They utilize the screens really well. And then all the little
Hmm.
set pieces, like when you're in the refrigerator or going under stoves and stuff like that, it does feel kind of like you're more. It lends itself better to being like you're the character kind of scurrying around and trying to get out of the kitchen.
Totally.
Similarly to Rise, right? Like you're kind of on this, being piloted by this droid who's losing its mind and trying to figure out where to go. But Mickey and Minnie's is just sort of it's kind of like a hodgepodge of different experiences. Um, like even like in Daisy's ballet scene, it kind of takes you
Yeah,
out. It's like it's fun, but it's almost like this
it's
different
fun,
kind of
but it's
thing.
awkward. Like
Yeah.
there's something awkward. I should say too on the Little Mermaid ride, I don't think I made myself clear. What in the beginning, the lighting was incredibly bright, and then they fixed it after a
Oh,
few
okay.
years.
Okay.
And then I remember going back on it, and the lights were completely dimmed and more focused on what they should have been, and not on like you couldn't see the track. I don't know if that's a trackless ride necessarily,
It's
but
not, no. It's
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 not,
very
right? Yeah,
it's like Haunted Mansion or Spaceship
yeah,
Earth, where it's just like
yeah,
that continual ride system.
yeah. But when they dimmed the lights down and focused on where it should be instead of like being able to see everything all at once, it just
Yeah.
makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. I had something and then it just like completely went out of my head. And I think it's because I muted myself and then yawned and then thought about how my son wakes up every 3 hours to eat. Um
Which should
uh
be any minute.
yeah, well, my wife's gonna she's a trooper. She's gonna take care of that right now. Although I did give him a bottle earlier today, so I'm kind of covered. Um, yeah, but I hear you. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. So there's this one ride that I think does trackless perfectly, and that is I'm gonna read it so I don't get it wrong.
Okay.
Luigi's Roll Rollickin' Roadsters. Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters in Cars Land at DCA.
Oh
Have you
yeah,
been
I've
on
seen.
that one?
I mean, I haven't. I've seen videos.
Okay, so it's the same kind of thing, right? It's like the
Yeah.
cars just go around in like the synchronized order. And then just like literally just like the ballet scene in Mickey and Minnie's, they like do this synchronized dance where you all get in a line and they're kind of like moving back and forth and backwards. And that's like the whole purpose is to be on this big, it's almost like line dancing, but with cars. And it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun and you know what you're getting into. I almost think that Mickey and Minnie's would be more effective if the use of it was like, and now we can play Imagineering, right? Where like the use of it was you were still on the train, but Goofy's like so out of his mind that he derails somehow, and so like
And you
as you're
just like
going,
drifting
yeah,
and
you're just like sliding back and forth and drifting around, and like the corners, you feel like you're skidding. Like, I feel like that would almost be a better way to set it up. But at the same time,
that'd be cool.
it's also for little kids too. So I think they have to be a little mindful of how intense they make it,
Yeah.
because
I mean,
it's very much like a
for
little kid
me,
ride.
it's just bring the walls in closer.
Yeah.
I want to be closer to the action. I just don't want to be 10, 15 feet away from, like you go into that first carnival scene,
Mhm.
um, and everything just feels like it's all the way over there and I want it right
Yeah.
here.
But that's probably your artist appreciation wanting to see it closer. But then, something we couldn't fit as many people in at one time, and then wait times, and then something bottom line dollar bills. So, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some kind of logic in there
I'm
that
sure there's some reason. Yeah.
yeah. Is there I'm gonna just ask a couple more Disney questions, and I have something very specific I
Sure.
want to ask. You don't have to be like freaked out or scared because it's simple. Um, is there any piece specifically that you just feel like is quintessentially, you or something that you've done, whether it's for like a hobby, I don't know, or eh, like commissioned or professional that you've done that you really feels like something you're just super proud of, or is just like one of your favorite pieces that you've done?
Oh man.
And
Oh,
that's a
let's
loaded
think.
question, I know, and you
That
can
is a
think about it,
really
but
loaded question. Oh, I should have prepped for that one. Let's think.
While you're thinking about it, I did want to say on February 20th of 2020, you posted a very cool droid photo of them all stacked on top of each other.
Yeah,
So you got like
my droids. I love
C3PO,
that one.
R2, Chopper, BB-8, and Dio. And you
And a
said that
little
you
mouse
had
and
it.
a little mouse droid.
It's in a little mouse droid. How could I forget? He's right next to 3PO's foot there. Uh, it was on Etsy. Do you still have an Etsy shop up?
No, I stopped doing the Etsy a long
Ah,
time
man,
ago.
I was gonna see if I could buy that because that's pretty cool.
I'll see if I have any prints later and I can send you one.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Um, I so yeah, I had the Etsy shop for a long time. I hate going to the post office more than anything in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know what it. I hate shipping things and I hate getting stuff together and putting
Mhm.
addresses on. I just it drives me nuts. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I get that.
I only sell at conventions now.
Okay. That's totally fair. I just thought I'd mention it. Have you thought of anything yet? If not, I have another comment and stuff.
So favorite pieces, I would say professionally, professionally, the Jungle Cruise game was a
Hmm.
highlight of my career. I absolutely loved doing that game board and fitting in little. I tried to fit in Easter eggs if I could. So
Yeah.
I was told that I wasn't allowed to mention the SEA in there. Um, I'm sure your viewers know what the SEA is, right? Or you do? Do you know what the
You
SEA
know
is?
what? I don't. The Society of
So it's,
Explorers. Is that what you're talking
or
about?
is it, yeah, Society of Explorers and Adventurers,
Okay.
which is this all-encompassing group that is connecting all these rides. And I think I've heard that
Got
Disney
it.
is going
Okay.
to be doing something with the SEA in upcoming TV shows and stuff like that. So they're going to be diving into it.
Yeah. It's
But
kind of like the Illuminati or like the Freemasons or something like that.
yeah, but it connects a
Yeah.
tower. It connects the Tower of Terror to Jungle
Yeah.
Cruise to
Hmm.
to all the rides. Um, so I wanted to have the SEA headquarters on the Jungle Cruise board, but I
Hmm.
wasn't allowed to put it on there. So what I did was, if you look at the end of the board where you finally end up at the end, there is a white building, which if you go to the Magic Kingdom, it is the Skipper Cruise Canteen. I used that building as the model, which is actually the SEA headquarters.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that was my way of like squeezing in a little
Hmm.
Easter egg into that board game.
I'm trying to get a like decent picture of this thing on Google Images so I can see what you're talking about. Okay, I'm gonna be honest because I don't want to be a liar, okay?
Oh, do it.
I had never heard of the SEA until you just mentioned it. And I have a
Yeah?
freaking Disney podcast. Yeah, no, that's the truth. I'd never have heard of it before. And I'm looking into it and now like my
Oh
brain is
man.
kind of melting a little bit.
Oh, get ready. Get ready.
I I
This
I
is a rabbit hole you're never gonna climb out of.
I confidently said, as I confidently said, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers because I Googled it and I'm very good at very quickly pivoting and finding something and then saying, like I know what this is or I've heard of it
Mm-hmm.
just to like carry on the conversation and first of all be a good podcast host and also be
It's
really
your
good at
job.
sales when I
It's your
need to be.
job.
Well, in marketing, yeah, I mean, I need to be, be on my feet and be able to sell. Boy, I hope none of my clients hear that. Um, I don't think they listen to this show, but I had never heard of this, and I'm looking through it, and I'm looking at like the members. I mean, you got everyone from Jock Lindsay to I mean, like Garrett Reed. It's just interesting. I'm very, very perplexed by this, and I feel like this could be an entirely um, separate. Uh, uh, this could genuinely be an entirely separate like mini series that Paige and I end up doing at some point. So thank you for opening up my world to that. I feel like I've just lost a lot of time looking into it.
Yeah, you're gonna love what you find. I mean the amount of attractions, rides, restaurants, and everything that it connects is just outstanding. It's so great.
I
I
mean, one of the
absolutely love it.
things it says is Bingo's Barbecue in Disneyland or Bingo Barbecue, excuse me, in Disneyland. So yeah, I'm like really, boy, I'm really kind of this is gonna get me. Why were you not allowed to put it in the game, if you could say?
It's just there's always it's not like a copyright thing, but Disney is very protective of the way things are presented.
I can understand that.
Um, and it's the same in my job now. We have to be very careful to not misrepresent something or add something that crosses universes. And
Sure.
it's Disney is just very, yeah, they're very protective
Yeah.
of their IPs.
Well, the last
Um,
thing you want to do is send like fans who have crazy theories in a spiral.
mhm.
Um, and that also, like I mentioned it very early on about like the word burden that I used was probably incorrect, but just that responsibility of like maintaining properly the Disney, how everything's presented and what it all goes into and how it, is bigger than any one person or, any one designer or voice actor or whatever. So that's really cool. No, I doggone it. I'm gonna be bookmarking this and thinking about it a lot now. So
Oh, you're gonna have to get back
um
to me.
yeah,
I
I
want to know.
will.
Want to know
Maybe
what you found out. Like
so
even like you'll jump
okay.
into it. Like you know Tony Baxter, right?
Oh yeah, of course. He's my
Or
wife's
not Tony
oh,
not
go
Tony
ahead.
not Tony Baxter. That's not who I meant. I meant
Joe
Rhodey. Oh
Rohde?
my God, Joe Rhodey. Yeah. So
Yeah,
Joe
he's actually
Rhodey.
Paige's favorite Imagineer.
Okay, so Joe
Yeah,
Rhodey is actually what's is actually the face model
on the Haunted Mansion ride in Disney in Asia.
for high. He's whatever Hightower, the
Yeah.
guy who
Mhm.
yeah for the
I know
Hightower
it's
Hotel for
yeah,
oh
yeah, you're right. The Hightower
but the
Hotel
one
and
but the
yeah.
one over in over in China, right?
Hmm.
Or is it Japan? No, it might be Japan.
Man,
I gotta get my facts straight.
let's just Google it real
But
quick. Are we not
but
sitting at
even
computers with like the most vast amount of
but even
information at our
like
fingertips?
I love that the SEA even connects like Joe Rhodey as a face
Hmm.
to that society
Yeah, Disney
because
Sea is where that one is.
okay yeah Disney
Yeah.
Sea.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And like they have his face on, I think there's like little statues of him all over the face,
Oh,
all
it's
over the place,
everywhere.
adorning the hotel. Um, yeah, that's really cool. I'm not as quick on my feet as I would like to be about some of the intricacies of the other spots in across the country, across the world of Disney properties, but I am familiar with what you're talking about there. And so for those of you who like aren't as familiar, this is the Hotel Hightower, which is technically the Tower of Terror in Disney Sea. And there's a lot of information about it. I don't remember where I've seen it, but I know like one of those Disney specials, they talk about it a lot and have all the information about it. I think it's like behind the attraction or one of those things where they talk about it a lot. So that's really
Ooh, which
cool.
we're getting a new season of in a week or two.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm super excited for that. I haven't even been paying
Me too.
attention to like what's going to be featured on it, but I'm thrilled. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that first season was great. And I love the YouTube kind of style that they
Hmm.
organized it in. Like it was just like quick and fun and like lots of art thrown up there and yeah, it was
Right, but it had the actual authority of being straight out of the mouth, from Disney's
yeah.
mouth to my ear, instead of just being like a YouTuber who could say literally whatever they wanted to.
I have watched that through I think 3 or 4 times.
I need to
Yeah,
go
I'm
back
very
to it
excited for
because
the
I've
new
only
season.
watched it once. Like the Imagineering series that came out when Disney Plus
Hmm.
was first out was one of my favorite things, and I've only watched that once
Yeah.
too. So I do need to go back and revisit those. We usually keep these things about an hour, so I know we're kind of coming up on a little bit of time here, but it would really just I would really feel the regret if I didn't ask you. I think one thing people may not know about you as prominently, because it's kind of hidden, sort of, in your Instagram account, and you don't really promote it as much. But you are a photographer as well. And
I
first
am.
of all, your work is incredible. I'm a photographer
Thanks.
myself, and I
Oh
usually
yeah?
I know a lot of people like to throw around the word photographer if they have an iPhone, and that is no disrespect to people who take pictures on their iPhone, but you actually shoot, you take photos the hard way on film, which I think
I
is
do. I love
incredible.
film.
And you have a Rolleiflex 3.5F, if I'm not mistaken. Is
Yes.
that what you're shooting on? I mean, that's a speaking of the Society of Explorers, that's an old camera.
Yeah. So
How did you get into that?
so I had a good buddy who I taught with or oh, that's like the whole story there. So
Okay, good.
I'll go as fast as I can because I know you want to wrap up.
No, no, I
Um
don't. I don't. I just want to be respectful of your time. I could talk longer.
no,
I'm down for
I'm good.
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
great.
I'm good. Yeah. Okay, so back after I left Ringling and had started my family, around the time that we had our second kid, I went back to community college just to get some more graphic design courses in. Um, and I took one course with a guy named Joshua Serpernot, and he was an adjunct teacher at the time, and he was teaching an Illustrator course. And was it Illustrator or was it just graphic design? I don't remember. Either way, we became friends, and he has been one of my closest friends ever since. He got
Hmm.
me into photography
Okay.
when we started working together at Full Sail. He was actually the one that pulled me in to teach at Full Sail, and he started teaching me about photography. And I started out super simple.
Hmm.
I started out because I didn't understand f-stop. I didn't understand aperture.
Yeah.
It was a I mean, it's a lot. If you're just getting into film photography,
Right.
it is a very it is a very confusing art form, and there is a
Hmm.
lot that goes into it. So I was like, I got a box camera,
Hmm.
and from like the 1920s, and all you do is you load up your 120 film and you
Yep.
just flick the switch. So when I started out, it was all about composition.
Yeah.
I did
That's.
everything during the day, and I learned how to do double exposures, so I would have some fun with that.
Mhm.
And this is back around 2012 or so, and then
Okay.
slowly I got into regular cameras. I got into
Hmm.
I what did I have? I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've probably owned about 60 or 70 cameras over the years, and
Wow.
I've gotten rid of most of them, and
Okay.
I'm down to probably like I don't know 6 or 7 now. Um, but I slowly learned, and I learned all everything that goes into it, and I
Hmm.
have a great understanding of photography now, and I absolutely love
Yeah.
it. In about 2016, on my second trip to New York, I got a Yashica Mat 124G. Nope, not the
Hmm.
G, just the 124,
Okay.
which is a TLR, which is a twin lens reflex camera.
Yep.
So it's just like a Rolleiflex. You look down, um, and the Rolleiflex was like my dream camera. I'm like, I love
Okay.
this. I
Yeah.
was like, there's a better version of this out there because that Yashica was fantastic. Um, and finally, like over the years, I got better jobs and I was able to like save up money and I got a Rolleiflex. Uh,
Nice.
I'm gonna this little story behind the Rolleiflex. I
Go
didn't
for it.
pay that much. I didn't pay that much for it.
You can get them
I
used for like not an insane amount of money.
I was on my way back from Dragon Con in Atlanta, and there is a antique store right off the highway on 75,
Hmm.
about 45 minutes when you get into Florida. And I stopped by on my way home, and I was walking through it, and I found this 3.5F in a beautiful leather case in perfect working
Nice.
condition,
Yeah.
and they wanted $800 for it. Now, if you go onto eBay, they're running about 17 to 2000 right now,
Yeah.
1700 two
I
thousand
saw
dollars
one
right
for
now
I saw one for 3,500 when I was just kind of like looking when you were talking.
for a
It's
3.5F.
yeah.
Oh, jeez. I
Yeah.
hope it's worth that much anyway.
I have
So
a I have a thought and a feeling about some photography these days, but I'll get to it. Could carry on.
okay. So no, dude, I could talk about photography all night. So they wanted 800 for it, and I'm like, that's honestly at the time they were going for about 1300 online. So I was like, that's
Mhm.
fair. And I had
Yeah.
just finished a con, so I had like a little bit of spending money. I'm like, I
Yeah,
could do
for
this.
sure.
But I checked it. I went in. I was like, I don't know. I don't have all this cash with me. I was like, would you guys take 300? And they're like, hold on, let me call the guy. And they called the guy, and he's like, he'll take 350.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. So
Yeah,
I got like an $1,800 camera for 350 bucks, which is
that
amazing.
rips.
And I've been
That's so
using
cool.
that for a long time. And I even got it reskinned.
Hmm.
Because these old cameras have leather
Yeah.
adhered to the metal body all over them. And I got mine reskinned to a sand color, like synthetic material, and it's the most gorgeous camera you've ever seen now. And I absolutely love it. But a few years ago, I bought a uh, Bessa R2
Hmm.
35 millimeter with a Leica lens mount on it,
Yeah.
and then got a Voigtlander 35 millimeter lens for it, and
Okay.
that was really expensive. That was the most I've ever spent on a camera. That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't do 35 millimeter to save my life. Like there's something
Okay.
about it. Like I'm a
Yeah.
I'm a medium format camera guy. And so I ended up selling that and I bought a Hasselblad 500 CM. And
So it's funny because I have one of those as well, but
yeah.
it was my grandfather's.
Yeah.
So
Is that the back to it over there on over your shoulder? Sitting on the book?
uh
There's like a little
right
box
there,
right there. Yeah.
this thing that I'm pointing at. No,
Yeah.
that's a vial of ink that my dad bought me for my 30th birthday along
It's
with a ink
so
pen.
That's so funny because it's like low res from here, and I
Yeah,
keep looking at it.
yeah.
I'm like, is that like a Hasselblad back?
No, that's literally just a vial of blue ink for a fountain pen my dad got me for my 30th birthday. No, so my cameras, I have them all over there. And I'm sorry to everyone who's a Disney fan that's listening to this, but maybe you'll like it. So yeah, I have a Hasselblad, literally 500 cm as well. I'm really crappy at shooting it. I mean, I'm working on it, and I do a lot of photography professionally. So I do like a lot of product photography, food photography, lifestyle stuff. And
Okay.
I always bring out my digitals for those because it's just easier if you're getting paid to know that you're gonna like actually get it done, right and high
Yeah.
and web worthy and not like moody or aesthetic or anything like that. Um, but yeah, I have that, and I have three Nikon FEs that were my parents. So my parents actually met in a camera shop in the 80s. That's my dad, my whole like I have a really long history of photography in my family. My like I said, my it was my grandfather's, my Hasselblad is it was his, and then my mom's uncle actually was like the town photographer for Cooperstown. He did like all the Hall of Fame stuff for Cooperstown. And so like he had like an incredibly, wide portfolio of black and whites that he took. So yeah, my
That's
parents ended
awesome.
up meeting in a camera shop in Napa, California in the 80s. And so yeah, that's it's kind of always just been, kind of part of like my upbringing.
Yeah.
And so I was shooting on like, really crappy film cameras that my parents would buy me, just like you'd buy like your kid a point and shoot or something now, like some kind of a, cheap Canon or whatever. But I remember like my dad the very first time my dad ever came home with a digital camera, like his first picture he ever took with my sister and I in like one of our, doughboy, inflatable pools, in our little pool floaties and stuff. And like the resolution was so bad, the pictures looked awful, but yeah, it's such a cool, it's such a cool medium to be in, but I kind of just started getting back into film because it really is like a labor of love, like I
Yeah.
listen to records, but it's in fact one of our sponsors on our show, they're called Deep Cut. They make like record accessories and displays, and they're awesome. They're such a cool brand. But one of their coasters that they've sent me, it just like their slogan, and it says it on there, like, listen to music the hard way.
Yeah.
So a lot of like, what they do, and a lot of that kind of like medium is really doing things in a way that's a little bit more difficult and time consuming. And I really appreciated that you said like focusing on composition first, because that's just like so critical. I mean, um, if you're not like thinking about it and taking a minute and seeing where everything needs to be placed, it's just, the colors could be perfect, everything could look great, but if it's not like, if it doesn't
Yeah.
follow like the rules, I know that, you can do whatever, but if there are certain rules you need to look for, and if
Yeah.
they're not following that, then it's just kind of pointless.
You got to know the
So
rules before you break them. So
I agree. There's this great book. It's 15 bucks on Amazon. It's called Read This. Let me make sure I get the title right. It's called, I think it's called Read This If You Want to Take Great Photos.
yeah.
And if anyone ever is interested in like taking in photography and they ask me a question, I will just buy them the book and send it to their house, because it's one of those books that's just like, it's this little tiny black book, but it goes through
Little
all the
black and white.
basic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes through like,
I bought it at the Met last year.
okay, cool.
I blew because like even though I've been doing photography for so long, dude, I'm with you 100%. Like you can always refresh yourself, and that is like
Exactly.
one of my favorite books. And I blew through the whole thing and got that refresher that I needed, and I gave the book to my son, and
Yep.
now he's out taking photos with his Leica R and his I think he's got a Yashica now. I don't know. He's over in Japan with the Marines, so he's got a bunch of
That's
cameras.
that's awesome. Do you develop your own film or no?
I have stuff too, and I have once with my friend Josh that I was telling you about, the one that
Mm,
got me into photography. Um, I'm too afraid to. I
okay,
get, I get, I send my stuff out to a film place over in Tampa.
okay,
As a matter of
cool.
fact, I have like 8 rolls that I'm just waiting for the scans to come back right now. I'm very excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really funny because like there definitely is sort of this resurgence, I think, of nostalgic mediums. And I guess it was when I first like moved out east, my dad kind of pulled out all his old photography equipment. Um, because like he and I both have Sony A7 A7S's. Like we love them. They're great. They're great. Or Sony A7 III's, I think. They're great cameras. That's what I use for like shooting all of my, professional work. If someone hires me to come out and do something, I'll do that. Um, and so, all the film stuff kind of went by the wayside. He ended up selling a lot of it. He sold all of his darkroom equipment, everything that just sat in our garage for like decades because it just wasn't something people were using anymore when digital kind of came around. And so
Yeah,
once it all sort of came back into fashion, I already had all his cameras, I had everything, and they were just kind of sitting around. And he was just like, "Man, I wish I hadn't sold my darkroom equipment. Because wouldn't that be fun to like get back into that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but hindsight." But yeah, it really is funny. Your photos are amazing. I mean,
thanks, man.
they're really really good and really, especially like those some of those Hasselblad, those latest ones that you have on there. I mean, they're just really really good.
I
So
really
yeah,
appreciate that.
they're great,
I
man.
don't I don't talk about my photography. I don't like I've told myself I will never make money off of it. I don't
Hmm.
want to. I don't want to have that. I don't want to have the pressure to like because a lot of the art I do, there's always the thought in the back of my head, is this going to sell at a con? And
Yeah.
it's always something I love. I love to
Hmm.
draw. I love to draw things that excite me, and I will only draw things that excite me. But
Yeah.
I also am going to focus on, to an extent, is this going to sell at a convention? Am I
Yeah.
going to make money off this? So
Hmm.
with my photography, I've said I'm never going to ask for money for it because I want it. I don't want to lose that
Yeah.
freedom.
Yep. I have I play music, and for a variety of reasons I've never pursued it, beyond just as a hobby. The main one is I don't want to be away from my family for extended periods of time to like sit in a bus and stay in cheap hotel rooms. Um, but I have some friends who, are recording musicians, and it's kind of the same thing for them where they're like, having to like have to do it and all those expectations really kind of sucks the life out of the air.
Hmm.
When like you take an art form that you love or something that you really want to do, and then all of a sudden it's an obligation, as opposed to, just like getting to do it because you really want to do it. So
Yeah,
um, yeah, that's great. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm in, why I'm in marketing in the first place, right?
yeah,
Is because it's just something I can still have creative work. I take photos, I get paid for stuff. I do a lot of like photography of wine bottles and like white backgrounds with studio lighting and stuff like that. And products and things, but I know what it is, right? It's kind of like it's this
yeah,
specific niche of like I still get to do something creative and fun, and I can do some design work, but it's like for a car dealership and I'm making like sale banners or whatever. But I know it has its own space. It has kind of its
yeah,
own little spot that it lives in my life that isn't going to be saturated with other stuff. So
yeah,
yeah,
100%.
that's really
Yeah,
cool.
I've always told myself, if I ever like, so I also like I designed that one game with my friends, and we created a company and did that game. Didn't make it anywhere, but I always have game ideas, and
Yeah.
I always have designs, and like I've been working on a game with my wife actually since July.
Oh wow. Okay.
That and I like my dream is to make a game that makes me a ton of money,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can draw when I want to. But
Yep.
honestly, if
Yeah.
I could do anything with the rest of my life, I would go take photos for the rest of my life. That
Yeah.
is my passion. That is what I absolutely love to do. I just love to take my camera out and look for the light and go find something new.
That is, yeah, I hear you. I feel like that's a pretty good resting place. So I really it's been so much fun talking to you.
Thanks,
Seriously,
man.
I've
It's
really
been it's
enjoyed
been
it,
great.
and I will certainly keep you abreast to what I find out about the Society of Explorers and Adventurers as I get into it. And I'm going
Yeah,
to try to convince my
please
wife
do.
that we need to do some kind of a series on it because that just sounds like a lot of fun. We'll have you back on if you'd like to for that.
Sure.
Um, Obviously, I know that we talked a lot about what you're doing, but is there anything you want to plug or throw out there, that we can throw in show notes or that our listeners can hear about before you go?
Yeah. Yeah, this has
Okay.
just been fun, man. It's just fun to hang out.
All right. Well, it was really nice to get to know you through this. Good luck with everything you're doing. Congrats on your big, your new work with Disney and all the things that you're doing. So, yeah, thanks again so much for coming on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, that is going to wrap it up for us. Again, we just want to say thank you to Jacob for coming on the show. You can find him on Instagram at YouFoundJacob. You can also go to his website at youfoundjacob.com. And to check out his beautiful photography that he and I spent the latter half of the show talking about, you can go to youfoundjacobscamera.com. We'll link everything in the show notes. And again, I just want to say thank you. That was such a fun time talking. And that was really great always having new perspectives and different artists and people on the show who can share their passions with us. I just want to say thank you one more time to our incredible sponsors, Deep Cut and Neosabers. Remember, you can get 10% off your first order at either one of those websites using the code TPA10 at checkout. We will be back next week with something really fun because of the crazy schedule we've got going on. I have no idea what that is, but I cannot wait to check in and share that with you. Thanks again for listening, and we will catch you next time.